Jeffrey Edward Epstein, Epstein, January 20th, 1953, August 10th, 2019, was an American financier and convicted sex offender. He began his professional life as a teacher, but then switched to the banking and finance sector in various roles, working at Bear Stearns before forming his own firm. He developed an elite social circle and procured many women and children who were then sexually abused by Epstein and some of his contacts. In 2005, police in Palm Beach, Florida, began investigating Epstein after a parent complained that he had sexually abused her 14-year-old daughter. Epstein pleaded guilty and was convicted in 2008 by a Florida state court of procuring a child for prostitution and of soliciting a prostitute. He served almost 13 months in custody, but with extensive work release. He was convicted of only these two crimes as part of a controversial plea deal. Federal officials had identified 36 girls, some as young as 14 years old, whom Epstein had allegedly sexually abused. Epstein was arrested again on July 6, 2019, on federal charges for the sex trafficking of minors in Florida and New York. He died in his jail cell on August 10, 2019. The medical examiner ruled the death a suicide. Epstein's lawyers have disputed the ruling, and there has been significant public skepticism about the true cause of his death. Since his death precluded the possibility of pursuing criminal charges, a judge dismissed all criminal charges on August 29, 2019. Epstein had a decades-long association with Ghislaine Maxwell, who has faced persistent allegations of procuring and sexually trafficking underage girls for Epstein, which led to her arrest by the FBI on July 2, 2020. Epstein also maintained a years-long friendship with Prince Andrew, Duke of York. Early life. Epstein was born in 1953 in the Brooklyn borough of New York City. His parents Pauline, née Stolofsky, 1918–2004, and Seymour G. Epstein, 1916–1991, were Jewish and had married in 1952, shortly before his birth. Pauline worked as a school aide and was a homemaker. Seymour Epstein worked for the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation as a groundskeeper and gardener. Jeffrey Epstein was the older of two siblings. Epstein and his brother Mark grew up in the working-class neighborhood of Seagate, Coney Island, Brooklyn. Epstein attended local public schools, first Public School 188 and then Mark Twain Junior High School nearby. In 1967, Epstein attended the National Music Camp at the Interlochen Center for the Arts. He began playing the piano when he was 5. He graduated in 1969 from Lafayette High School at age 16, having skipped 2 grades. Later that year, he attended classes at Cooper Union until he changed colleges in 1971. From September 1971, he attended the Courant Institute of Mathematical Sciences at New York University, but left without receiving a degree in June 1974. Career. Teaching. Epstein started working in September 1974 as a physics and mathematics teacher for teens at the Dalton School on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Donald Barr, who served as the headmaster until June 1974, was known to have made several unconventional recruitments at the time, although it is unclear whether he had a direct role in hiring Epstein. 3 months after Barr's departure, Epstein began to teach at the exclusive private school despite his lack of credentials. activities. FBI Special Agent Christina Pryor reviewed the material and agreed it was information that would have been extremely useful in investigating and prosecuting the case, including names and contact information of material witnesses and additional victims. Civil cases. Jane Doe v. Epstein, 2008. On February 6, 2008, an anonymous Virginia woman, known as Jane Doe No. 2, filed a $50 million civil lawsuit in federal court against Epstein, saying that when she was a 16-year-old minor in 2004-05, she was recruited to give Epstein a massage. She claims she was taken to his mansion, where he exposed himself and had sexual intercourse with her, and paid her $200 immediately afterward. A similar $50 million suit was filed in March 2008 by a different woman, who was represented by the same lawyer. These and several similar lawsuits were dismissed. All other lawsuits have been settled by Epstein out of court. Epstein made many out-of-court settlements with alleged victims. Victims' rights. Jane Doe v. United States, 2014. A December 30, 2014, federal civil suit was filed in Florida by Jane Doe 1, Courtney Wild, and Jane Doe 2 against the United States for violations of the Crime Victims' Rights Act by the U.S. Department of Justice's NPA with Epstein and his limited 2008 state plea. There was a later unsuccessful effort to add Virginia Roberts, Jane Doe 3, and another woman, Jane Doe 4, as plaintiffs to that case. The addition accused Alan Dershowitz of sexually abusing a minor, Jane Doe 3, provided by Epstein. The allegations against Dershowitz were stricken by the judge and eliminated from the case because he said they were outside the intent of the suit to reopen the plea agreement. A document filed in court alleges that Epstein ran a sexual abuse ring and lent underage girls to prominent American politicians, powerful business executives, foreign presidents, a well-known prime minister, and other world leaders. This long-running lawsuit is pending in federal court, aimed at vacating the federal plea agreement on the grounds that it violated victims' rights. On April 7, 2015, Judge Kenneth Mara ruled that the allegations made by alleged victim Virginia Roberts against Prince Andrew had no bearing on the lawsuit by alleged victims seeking to reopen Epstein's non-prosecution plea agreement with the federal government. The judge ordered that allegation to be struck from the record. Judge Mara made no ruling as to whether claims by Roberts are true or false. Though he did not allow Jane Doe 3 and 4 to join the suit, Mara specifically said that Roberts may later give evidence when the case comes to court. On February 21, 2019, in the case of the two Jane Doe v. United States, Senior Judge of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida Kenneth Mara said federal prosecutors violated the law by failing to notify victims before they allowed him to plead guilty to only the two Florida offenses. The judge left open what the possible remedy could be. Virginia Roberts Jufre v. Epstein, 2015. In a December 2014 Florida court filing by Bradley Edwards and Paul G. Castleman for inclusion in the Crime Victims' Rights Act lawsuit, Virginia Roberts Jufre, then known as Virginia Roberts, alleged in a sworn affidavit that at age 17, she had been sexually trafficked by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell for their own use and for use by several others, including Prince Andrew and retired Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz. Jufre also claimed that Epstein, Maxwell and others had physically and sexually abused her. She alleged that the FBI may have been involved in a cover-up. She said she had served as Epstein's sex slave from 1999 to 2002, and had recruited other underage girls. Prince Andrew, Epstein, and Dershowitz all denied having had sex with Jufre. Dershowitz took legal action over the allegations. Jufre filed a defamation suit against Dershowitz, claiming he purposefully made false and malicious defamatory statements about her. A diary purported to belong to Jufre was published online. Epstein entered an out-of-court settlement with Jufre, as he had done in several other lawsuits. In 2019, Giuffre was interviewed by the BBC's Panorama, where she continued to attest that Epstein had trafficked her to Prince Andrew. She appealed directly to the public by stating, "I implore the people in the UK to stand up beside me, to help me fight this fight, to not accept this as being okay." As of 2016, these accusations had not been tested in any court of law. Virginia Roberts Giuffre v. Ghislaine Maxwell, 2015. As a result of Giuffre's allegations and Maxwell's comments about them, Giuffre sued Maxwell for defamation in September 2015. After much legal confrontation, the case was settled under seal in May 2017. The Miami Herald, other media, and Alan Dershowitz filed to have the documents about the settlement unsealed. After the judge dismissed their request, the matter was appealed to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. On March 11, 2019, in the appeal of the district judge's refusal to unseal the documents relating to the 2017 defamation settlement of Giuffre v. Maxwell, the Second Circuit Court gave parties 1 week to provide good cause as to why they should remain under seal, without which they would be unsealed on March 19, 2019. Later the court ordered these documents to be unsealed, after having them redacted to protect innocent parties. In Giuffre's testimony, she claims that she was directed by Maxwell to give erotic massages and engage in sexual activities with Prince Andrew, Jean-Luc Brunel, Glenn Dubin, Marvin Minsky, Governor Bill Richardson, another unnamed prince, an unnamed foreign president, a well-known prime minister, and an unnamed hotel chain owner from France, among others. The deposition does not claim that any of these men in fact engaged with Giuffre, and as of August 2019, none of these men have been indicted or sued for related sex crimes. Giuffre testified, "My whole life revolved around just pleasing these men and keeping Ghislaine and Jeffrey happy. Their whole entire lives revolved around sex." On August 9, less than 24 hours before Epstein's death, 2,000 pages of previously sealed documents from the case were released. 2 sets of additional sealed documents will be analyzed by a federal judge to determine whether they should also be made public. John Doe asked the judge on September 3 to permanently keep the documents secret, claiming unproven allegations of impropriety could damage his reputation, though he had no evidence his name was included. Jane Doe v. Epstein and Trump, 2016. A federal lawsuit filed in California in April 2016 against Epstein and Donald Trump by a California woman alleged that the 2 men sexually assaulted her at a series of parties at Epstein's Manhattan residence in 1994, when she was 13 years old. The suit was dismissed by a federal judge in May 2016 because it did not raise valid claims under federal law. The woman filed another federal suit in New York in June 2016, but it was withdrawn 3 months later, apparently without being served on the defendants. A third federal suit was filed in New York in September 2016. The 2 latter suits included affidavits by an anonymous witness who attested to the accusations in the suits, asserting Epstein employed her to procure underage girls for him, and an anonymous person who declared the plaintiff had told him her about the assaults at the time they occurred. The plaintiff, who had filed anonymously as Jane Doe, was scheduled to appear in a Los Angeles press conference 6 days before the 2016 election, but abruptly canceled the event. Her lawyer Lisa Bloom asserted that the woman had received threats. The suit was dropped on November 4, 2016. Trump attorney Alan Garten flatly denied the allegations, while Epstein declined to comment. Sarah Ransom v. Epstein and Maxwell, 2017. In 2017, Sarah Ransom filed a suit against Epstein and Maxwell, alleging that Maxwell had hired her to give massages to Epstein and later threatened to physically harm her or destroy her career prospects if she did not comply with their sexual demands at his mansion in New York City and on his private Caribbean island, Little St. James. The suit was settled in 2018 under undisclosed terms. Bradley Edwards defamation v. Epstein, 2018. A state civil lawsuit in Florida filed by attorney Bradley Edwards against Epstein was scheduled for trial in December 2018. The trial was expected to provide victims with their first opportunity to make their accusations in public. However, the case was settled on the first day of the trial, with Epstein publicly apologizing to Edwards. Other terms of the settlement were confidential. Maria Farmer v. Epstein and Maxwell, 2019. On April 16, 2019, Maria Farmer went public and filed a sworn affidavit in federal court in New York, alleging that she and her 15-year-old sister, Annie, had been sexually assaulted by Epstein and Maxwell in separate locations in 1996. Farmer met Epstein and Maxwell at her graduate art gallery reception at the New York Academy of Art in 1995. The following year, in the summer of 1996, they hired her to work on an art project in Leslie Wexner's Ohio mansion, where she was then sexually assaulted. Farmer reported the incident to the New York City Police Department and the FBI. Farmer's affidavit also stated that during the same summer, Epstein flew her then 15-year-old sister to his New Mexico property where he and Maxwell sexually abused her on a massage table. Jennifer Arauz v. Epstein and Maxwell, 2019. On July 22, 2019, while in jail awaiting trial, Epstein was served with a petition regarding a pending state civil lawsuit filed by Jennifer Arauz. She stated that an associate for Epstein had recruited her outside Talent Unlimited High School at age 14 and she was gradually groomed for over a year before Epstein raped her in his New York City mansion when she was 15. Arauz filed her suit on August 14, 2019, when New York state law was updated to allow 1 year for adult survivors of child sexual abuse to sue for previous offenses, regardless of how long ago the abuse took place. In October 2019, Arauz amended her complaint to include over 20 corporate entities associated with Epstein and named the additional individuals Leslie Groff and Simberly Espinosa as enablers. Caitlin Doe, et al. v. Epstein's estate, 2019. 3 women, Caitlin Doe, Lisa Doe and Priscilla Doe, sued the estate of Jeffrey Epstein on August 20, 2019. 2 of the women were 17 and 1 was 20 when they met Epstein. The women alleged they were recruited, subjected to unwanted sex acts, and controlled by Epstein and a vast enterprise of co-conspirators. Jane Doe v. Epstein's estate, 2019. A New York accuser of Epstein, known only as Jane Doe, announced a federal lawsuit against his estate in the Southern District of New York on September 18, 2019, stating that she was recruited in 2002 and sexually abused by Epstein for 3 years starting at age 14. Teresa Helm, et al. v. Epstein's estate, 2019. 5 women, Teresa Helm, Annie Farmer, Maria Farmer, Juliette Bryant, and an unidentified woman, represented by David Boies, sued Epstein's estate in federal district court in Manhattan in November 2019, accusing him of rape, battery and false imprisonment and seeking unspecified damages. Jane Doe 15 v. Epstein's estate, 2019. On November 18, 2019, a woman identified as Jane Doe 15 made a public appearance with her attorney Gloria Allred to announce that she was suing the estate of Jeffrey Epstein in the district court for the Southern District of New York, alleging that he manipulated, trafficked, and sexually abused her in 2004 when she was 15 years old. Taylor Davies v. Epstein's estate, 2019. On November 21, 2019, Taylor Davies appeared with her attorney Gloria Allred and announced her lawsuit in Manhattan federal court against Epstein's estate. Davies stated that after meeting Epstein in 2002, he sexually assaulted and trafficked her in New York, New Mexico, Florida, the Virgin Islands and France. Jane Doe 19 v. Epstein's estate, 2019. On December 3, 2019, lawyer Jordan Merson filed a lawsuit in New York on behalf of 9 anonymous accusers, Jane Doe 19, and against Epstein's estate for battery, assault, and intentional emotional distress. The claims date from 1985 through the 2000s, and include individuals who were 13, 14, and 15 when they first encountered Epstein. J.J. Doe v. Epstein's Estate, 2019. The lawsuit was filed by Bradley Edwards on behalf of his client in late December 2019. The accuser, J.J. Doe, is described as being a 14-year-old resident of Palm Beach County at the time Epstein abused her in 2004. U.S. Virgin Islands v. Epstein's Estate, et al., 2020. A lawsuit was filed in Superior Court of the U.S. Virgin Islands in January 2020 alleging that Epstein ran a sex trafficking conspiracy for over 2 decades, through 2018, with children as young as 11 years old on Epstein's Caribbean islands. According to Attorney General Denise George, his alleged criminal activities on the islands were concealed through a complex network of companies. Jane Doe v. Maxwell and Epstein's Estate, 2020. In January 2020, a lawsuit was filed against Maxwell and Epstein alleging that they recruited a 13-year-old music student at the Interlochen Center for the Arts in 1994 and subjected her to sexual abuse. The suit states that Jane Doe was repeatedly sexually assaulted by Epstein over a 4-year period and that Maxwell played a key role in both her recruitment and by participating in the assaults. Jane Doe v. Epstein Estate, 2020. In August 2029, Jane Doe filed suit accusing Epstein of sexual abuse. The alleged victims in the lawsuit include a 11 and 13-year-old and a victim who alleged abuse in 1975. Jane Doe v. Epstein Estate, 2020. In August 2020, Epstein was sued by a Jane Doe accusing him of sexually abusing her for 1.5 years, beginning when she was an 18-year-old aspiring singer and model in New York. Second criminal case. Trafficking charges. On July 6, 2019, Epstein was arrested by the FBI NYPD Crimes Against Children Task Force at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey on sex trafficking charges. He was jailed at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City, which has held prisoners such as John Gotti, Joaquin, El Chapo Guzman, and Paul Manafort. According to witnesses and sources on the day of his arrest, about a dozen FBI agents forced open the door to his Manhattan townhouse, the Herbert and Strauss House, with search warrants. The search of his townhouse turned up evidence of sex trafficking and also found hundreds, and perhaps thousands, of sexually suggestive photographs of fully, or partially, nude females. Some of the photos were confirmed as those of underage females. In a locked safe, compact discs were found with handwritten labels including the descriptions, "Young name plus name, Misk Nudes 1, and Girl Pics Nude." Also found in the safe were $70,000 in cash, 48 diamonds, and a fraudulent Austrian passport, which expired in 1987, that had Epstein's photo but another name. The passport had numerous entrance and exit stamps, including entrance stamps that showed the use of the passport to enter France, Spain, the United Kingdom, and Saudi Arabia in the 1980s. The passport showed his place of residence as Saudi Arabia. According to his attorneys, Epstein had been advised to acquire the passport because, as an affluent member of the Jewish faith, he was in danger of being kidnapped while traveling abroad. On July 8, prosecutors with the Public Corruption Unit of the Southern District of New York charged him with sex trafficking and conspiracy to traffic minors for sex. The grand jury indictment alleges that dozens of underage girls were brought into Epstein's mansions for sexual encounters. Judge Kenneth Mara was to decide whether the non-prosecution agreement that protected Epstein from the more serious charges should still stand. Epstein requested to be released on bond, offering to post $100 million with the condition that he would also submit to house arrest in his New York City mansion. U.S. District Judge Richard M. Berman denied the request on July 18, saying that Epstein posed a danger to the public and a serious flight risk to avoid prosecution. On July 23, Epstein was found injured and semi-conscious at 1:30 a.m. on the floor of his cell, with marks around his neck that were suspected to be the result of either a suicide attempt or an assault. His cellmate, former New York City police officer Nicholas Tartaglione, who was charged with 4 counts of murder, was questioned about Epstein's condition. He denied having any knowledge of what happened. Epstein himself said he recollected nothing. According to NBC News, 2 sources said that Epstein might have tried to hang himself, a third said the injuries were not serious and could have been staged, and a fourth source said that an assault by his cellmate had not been ruled out. On August 29, 2019, following Epstein's death 10 days prior, the case against Epstein was closed after Judge Berman dismissed all sex trafficking charges. However, he also expressed support for Epstein's accusers. Prosecutors objected to the ruling and stated they would continue an investigation for potential co-conspirators. Investigation in France. On August 23, 2019, the prosecutor's office in Paris, France, opened a preliminary investigation into Epstein. He is being investigated for rape and sexual assault of minors under and over the age of 15, criminal association with a view to committing crimes, and association with criminals with a view to committing offenses. The prosecutors said that the goal of the investigation is to find possible crimes committed in France and elsewhere against French citizens. Personal life. Previous long-term girlfriends associated with Epstein include Eva Undersundubben and publishing heiress Ghislaine Maxwell. Epstein was romantically linked to Undersundubben for an 11-year period in the 1980s, and the two later remained friendly well after her marriage to Glenn Dubin. Epstein met Maxwell, daughter of disgraced media baron Robert Maxwell, by 1991. Epstein had Maxwell come to the United States in 1991 to recover from her grief following the death of her father. Maxwell was implicated by several of Epstein's accusers as procuring or recruiting underage girls in addition to once being Epstein's girlfriend. In a 2009 deposition, several of Epstein's household employees testified that Maxwell had a central role in both his public and private life, referring to her as his main girlfriend, who also handled the hiring, supervising, and firing of staff starting around 1992. In 1995, Epstein renamed one of his companies the Ghislaine Corporation in Palm Beach, Florida. The company was dissolved in 1998. In 2000, Maxwell moved into a 7,000 square foot townhouse, less than 10 blocks from Epstein's New York mansion. This townhome was purchased for $4.95 million by an anonymous limited liability company, with an address that matches the office of J. Epstein and Company. Representing the buyer was Darren and Dyke, Epstein's longtime lawyer. In a 2003 Vanity Fair expose, Epstein refers to Maxwell as "my best friend." Epstein was a longtime acquaintance of Prince Andrew and Tom Berg, and attended parties with many prominent people, including Bill Clinton, George Stephanopoulos, Donald Trump, Katie Couric, Woody Allen, and Harvey Weinstein. His contacts included Rupert Murdoch, Michael Bloomberg, Richard Branson, Michael Jackson, Alec Baldwin, and the Kennedys. His contacts also included Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, British Prime Minister Tony Blair, and Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Both Clinton and Trump claimed that they never visited Epstein's island. Epstein owned a private Boeing 727 jet and traveled in it frequently, logging 600 flying hours a year, usually with guests on board. The jet was nicknamed the Lolita Express by the locals in the Virgin Islands because of its frequent arrivals at Little St. James with apparently underage girls. In 2003, Epstein flew to Cuba aboard his plane with Colombian President Andrés Pastrana Arango at the invitation of Cuban President Fidel Castro. According to Fabiola Santiago of the Miami Herald, Epstein was likely considering relocating to Cuba in order to escape U.S. law enforcement. Epstein was under investigation from U.S. law enforcement at the time. In 2009, Epstein's brother Mark claimed Trump had flown on Epstein's plane at least once. He later told The Washington Post that Trump flew numerous times on Epstein's airplane, although Mark was present on only one of the flights. According to Michael Corcoran, Trump flew Epstein on his own airplane at least once. In September 2002, Epstein flew Clinton, Kevin Spacey, and Chris Tucker to Africa in this jet. Flight records obtained in 2016 show Bill Clinton flew 27 times to at least a dozen international locations. Flight logs did not list any Secret Service detail for at least 5 flights on an Asia trip, and Secret Service stated that there is no evidence of the former president making a trip to Epstein's private island. In 2019, a Clinton spokesperson stated that, in 2002 and 2003, Clinton took 4 trips on Epstein's airplane, making stops on 3 continents, all with his staff and Secret Service detail. At the time of Epstein's 2019 arrest, Clinton spokeswoman Angel Urena stated that Clinton had not spoken to Epstein in well over a decade, and has never been to Little St. James Island, Epstein's ranch in New Mexico, or his residence in Florida. In a profile of Epstein in New York Magazine in 2002, former Democratic Senate leader George J. Mitchell said of Epstein, "I would certainly call him a friend and a supporter." In the same article, Donald Trump remarked, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life." In July 2019, Trump said, "I knew him like everybody in Palm Beach knew him," stating 4 times he had not been a fan of Epstein and that he had not spoken to him in about 15 years. A video shot in 1992 surfaced showing the 2 men partying together at Mar-a-Lago. By 2007, Trump reportedly banned Epstein from his Mar-a-Lago club for unseemly pursuit of young females. The ban allegation was included in court documents filed by attorney Bradley Edwards, although Edwards later said it was a rumor he tried to, but could not confirm. Bill Clinton lauded Epstein as a committed philanthropist with insights and generosity. At the time, Epstein was on the board of Rockefeller University, a member of the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations, and was a major donor to Harvard University. Epstein visited the White House while Clinton was president on 4 known occasions. In 1993, he went to a donor event at the White House with his companion Ghislaine Maxwell. Around the same time, he also met with President Clinton's aide Mark Middleton on at least 3 occasions at the White House. In 1995, financier Lynn Forrester discussed Jeffrey Epstein and currency stabilization with Clinton. Epstein, according to his own accounts, was heavily involved in the foreign exchange market and traded large amounts of currency in the unregulated forex market. In 1995, Epstein also attended a small political fundraiser dinner for Bill Clinton, which included 14 other people including Ron Perelman, Don Johnson, Jimmy Buffett, and dinner organizer Paul Prosperi. From the 1990s to mid-2000s, Epstein often socialized with the future President Donald Trump. Author Michael Wolff wrote that Trump, Epstein, and Tom Berg were at the time like a set of nightlife musketeers on the social scene. Epstein and Trump socialized both in New York City and Palm Beach, where they both had houses. In April 2003, New York Magazine reported Epstein hosted a dinner party in his Manhattan residence to honor Bill Clinton, who did not attend, although Trump did attend. According to The Washington Post, one person who knew Epstein and Trump during this time noted that they were tight and they were each other's wingmen. In November 2004, Epstein and Trump's friendship ran into trouble when they became embroiled in a bidding war for a $40 million mansion, Mason Tell Amy Ty, which was being auctioned in Palm Beach. Trump won the auction for $41 million, and successfully sold the property 4 years later for $95 million to the Russian billionaire Dmitry Rybolovlev. That month was the last time Epstein and Trump were recorded to have interacted. Wealth. The exact origin of Epstein's wealth is unknown. Leslie Wexner was one source of Epstein's original wealth. An assistant of Epstein also stated that he got his fortune started through Robert Maxwell, the media mogul father of Ghislaine Maxwell. When Epstein pleaded guilty in 2008 to soliciting and procuring prostitution, his lawyers stated he was a billionaire with a net worth of over $1 billion. A number of sources, however, have questioned the extent of Epstein's wealth and his status as a billionaire. According to an article in the New York Times, his fortune may be more illusion than fact. Epstein lost large sums of money in the 2008 financial crisis, and friends and patrons, including retail billionaire Leslie Wexner, deserted him following his pleading guilty to prostitution charges in 2008. New York Magazine claimed that there's scant proof of Epstein's financial bona fides, and Forbes also ran an article entitled, "Why Sex Offender Jeffrey Epstein is Not a Billionaire." Spencer Coven, an attorney for 3 of Epstein's alleged victims in the case where Epstein pleaded guilty to sexual activity with minors, stated that he and his team pursued every possible angle to find out Epstein's net worth but found that much of his wealth is offshore. An investigation by the Miami Herald of the Swiss leaks documents indicated that Epstein had multiple financial accounts with millions of dollars in offshore tax havens. In the Paradise Papers, records show that Epstein in February mistreated correctional officers, forcing many to work mandatory overtime and 60 to 70-hour workweeks. In previous congressional testimony, Attorney General Barr admitted the BOP was short about 4,000 to 5,000 employees. He had lifted the freeze and was working to recruit sufficient new officers to replace those who had departed. Epstein's attorneys asked Judge Berman to probe their client's death, alleging they could provide evidence that the incident resulting in his death was far more consistent with assault than suicide. 1 week after having signed his final will, it had been reported that at least one camera in the hallway outside Epstein's cell had footage that was unusable, although other usable footage was recorded in the area. 2 cameras that malfunctioned in front of Epstein's cell were sent to an FBI crime lab for examination. Federal prosecutors subpoenaed up to 20 correctional officers concerning the cause of Epstein's death. On November 19, 2019, federal prosecutors in New York charged Metropolitan Correctional Center guards Michael Thomas and Tova Noel with creating false records and with conspiracy, after video footage obtained by prosecutors revealed that Epstein had, against regulation, been in his cell unchecked for 8 hours prior to being found dead. In popular culture, Epstein's death became the subject of widespread controversy and debate, with the belief that his death was a homicide becoming a popular meme. HBO is creating a limited series on Epstein's life and death to be directed and executive produced by Adam McKay. Sony Pictures Television is additionally developing miniseries based on Epstein's life. In the Season 4 finale of the CBS series The Good Fight, the plot revolves around Epstein's death. The Netflix documentary series Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich premiered in May 2020. The Lifetime documentary Surviving Jeffrey Epstein premiered in August 2020. On July 1, 2020, a statue of Epstein appeared in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Footage of Trump and Epstein talking at the 1992 Mar-a-Lago party appears in the 2020 comedy mockumentary Borat subsequent movie film, where the footage is shown inspiring Borat to gift his teen daughter to someone in Trump's inner circle, with Borat deciding on Mike Pence, and later Rudy Giuliani. Later in the film, one of Borat's children also changes his name to Jeffrey Epstein. References. Further reading: Brown, Julie K. November 28, 2018. Even from jail, sex abuser manipulated the system. His victims were kept in the dark. Miami Herald. Brown, Julie K. November 28, 2018. For years, Jeffrey Epstein abused teen girls, police say. A timeline of his case. Miami Herald. Brown, Julie K. November 28, 2018. How a future Trump cabinet member gave a serial sex abuser the deal of a lifetime. Miami Herald. Brooke, Connie, August 5, 2019. Devil's Advocate. Alan Dershowitz's long, controversial career, and the accusations against him. The New Yorker. Pages 32-47. Costin, Jane, North, Anna, July 10, 2019. Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted sex offender who is friends with Donald Trump and Bill Clinton, explained. Vox. Stewart, James B. August 12, 2019. The day Jeffrey Epstein told me he had dirt on powerful people. The New York Times. Retrieved August 12, 2019. External links. Jeffrey Epstein's Little Black Book, Epstein's Redacted Contact Book, Jeffrey Epstein collected news and commentary. The New York Times. Collected news at the New York Daily News. FBI records Epstein indictment.